If you've ordered, well, pretty much anything that crosses an ocean in the last couple of years, coffee, cars, computer chips, you already know what we're talking about today.
Mm.
That invisible engine of the global economy, logistics, is, well, it's incredibly fragile.
It really is a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've built these amazingly efficient, just-in-time supply chains. I mean, they're optimized down to the minute.
Right.
But that same optimization, that leanness, makes them so vulnerable.
Yeah.
A single shock, a storm, a political crisis, anything, and the whole thing could just grind to a halt.
And that old school solution, the 3-ring binder on a shelf labeled contingency plan,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just obsolete. When a real crisis hits, you need to know your plan actually works. You need to have tested it before the disaster.
And that is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. We're looking at a technology that gives companies a shortcut to resilience. It's called agent-based AI simulations, or ABMS.
A shortcut to resilience. I like that.
It's not just another modeling tool. Think of it more like a dynamic virtual sandbox. It's a place where businesses can throw their absolute worst-case scenarios out their operations and see what breaks.
So our mission today is to unpack this. We're going to get into what ABMS actually is, how the AI part makes it so powerful, and then look at how companies are using it to basically bulletproof their supply chains.
Exactly. To make sure things get delivered no matter what the world throws at them.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Before we get to the AI, we have agent-based modeling, ABM. What is that fundamentally? How is it different from just, a spreadsheet?
It's a completely different way of thinking.
Yeah.
ABM's all about building complexity from simple parts. So instead of a big top-down flowchart of your whole network, you model it as a collection of independent things, or agents. And these agents, they all have their own rules, their own behaviors, they're making their own decisions.
And in logistics, what are these agents? Are you literally creating a digital version of every single component?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
An agent can be an individual supplier in, say, Taiwan. It could be a specific container ship, a single delivery truck, a warehouse. Even a customer's buying habits can be an agent.
Okay, so give me an example. Let's say you have a truck agent. Its rule is to always take route A unless there's heavy traffic. Then a weather agent creates a flood on route A. What happens in the model?
That's where you get this incredible thing called emergence. It's the magic of the whole system. The single truck agent sees the flood and makes its own decision. Switch to route B.
Okay.
But that one decision has a ripple effect. That truck is now late to the warehouse. So the warehouse agent can't load it. It sends a message to the supplier agent saying, hey, hold off on that next shipment. And suddenly you see this massive bottleneck forming at a totally different port that you never even expected.
So the system-wide traffic jam, the big problem, it just emerges from all those tiny little independent choices.
Exactly. You don't program the problem, you program the actors, and the problem reveals itself. And that's something a spreadsheet could never, ever show you.
That is powerful. Okay, so now let's add the AI part, ABMS. How does artificial intelligence take this from a cool simulation to something genuinely intelligent?
The AI is the game changer. It's what turns the model from just following rules to being a predictive, an optimization engine, really. We're talking about machine learning, complex algorithms.
So what does that look like for one of those agents, that truck agent, for instance?
Well, instead of just a simple if-then rule, an AI-powered agent learns from history. It might process, terabytes of data on past disruptions, fuel costs, delivery times, and it learns to make the optimal choice to meet a goal.
A goal like get this there as fast as possible or get this there as cheap as possible.
Precisely. And it can adapt that goal based on the situation. It lets the agents become predictive. They start to anticipate problems instead of just reacting to them.
So they're seeing patterns that a human might miss.
Absolutely. An agent might see the early signs of a labor slowdown at a port based on localized health data, or predict the impact of a storm that's still 5 days out. And that lets the company test a dozen different responses in the simulation, in just a few hours.
Instead of a manager having to make a gut call in the middle of a crisis.
Exactly.
Right.
The AI is processing data from everywhere. Inventory levels in all 50 warehouses, real-time traffic, shifts in customer demand. It's a level of synthesis that's it's impossible for a human to do on the fly.
So a contingency plan is no longer a static document. It's this living, breathing strategy that can adapt.
That's it.
Okay, so let's break down the application side of this. The whole point is to stress test these plans. So if you're a big company, how are you actually using ABMS? What are the tests?
We can really group them into 4 main applications. The first one is the most straightforward. simulating disruptions.
This is the disaster movie part.
Kind of, yeah. You can model anything. A volcanic ash cloud that grounds all air freight in Europe. A sudden cyber attack on your main supplier. A port closure due to political tension. The simulation lets you see the whole chain reaction unfold in real time.
So you're not just getting a report that says deliveries will be late. You're watching it happen.
You're watching it happen. You could model, say, a 3-week strike at a major port. You literally see your ship agents rerouting, your trucking agents scrambling for new routes in, I don't know, Mexico or Canada, and then you'd see the new bottlenecks that creates.
Which leads right into the second application, I imagine. You can then test your response to that strike.
Exactly. That's application 2, evaluating response strategies. So the strike is happening in the virtual world.
Yeah.
Now you test your plans. What if we increase our safety stock by 20%? Or what if we activate our backup supplier in Vietnam?
And you can run both scenarios at the same time.
At the same time. The model will tell you almost instantly which one costs less, which one gets you back to normal faster, and which one, might actually make things worse.
So you get to fail cheaply. You find the bad ideas in the simulation before you commit millions of dollars in the real world.
That's the bottom line. And it's critical because in a real crisis, your resources are instantly stretched thin. Which brings us to number 3, optimizing resource allocation.
Right. When things are breaking, you have to be efficient with what you have left.
And that's where the AI really shines. So let's say a hurricane takes out a key bridge, wiping out a whole trucking corridor. The AI immediately sees that loss of capacity. It then redeploys every available truck and driver to serve the most critical needs first.
Prioritizing, say, medical supplies over something less urgent.
Exactly. And it's not just the trucks. The AI might tell warehouses in other regions to start building up a bit of inventory to absorb the shock, while telling the factories to slow down production so they don't overwhelm the system. It treats the whole network like a single organism trying to heal itself.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Planning for one failure is one thing. But the real nightmare is when 2 or 3 things go wrong at once.
The cascading failure.
I haven't modeled that.
That is the unique power of the 4th application. Exploring worst-case scenarios. Traditional planning can't handle this. The variables are just too insane. But ABMS is built for it.
Give me an example of a worst-case scenario.
Okay, imagine this. A cyber attack takes down your rail scheduling software. At the same time, a major hurricane shuts down 2 of your key ports on the Gulf Coast. And just for fun, customer demand for one of your products suddenly spikes 40% worldwide.
That's a nightmare. The effects aren't just A plus B, it's something much worse.
It's A times B cubed. It's a nonlinear effect. ABMS lets you see that unfold. It helps you find weaknesses you never knew were connected. Maybe 2 of your critical suppliers both use the same small IT providing, making them vulnerable to one single point of failure. It prepares you for the problems you didn't even know you had.
So, if this technology is that powerful, what are we seeing in the real world? What's the payoff for businesses in terms of, money and preparedness?
The benefits are huge. First, and most obviously, is improved decision-making.
Yeah.
You're not guessing anymore. You have actual data from thousands of simulations telling you what works and what doesn't. You're moving from intuition to evidence.
And I have to assume, if you find those weak spots, you're saving money even when things are running smoothly.
Oh, absolutely. That's the second benefit, increased efficiency and cost savings. The simulations don't just find crisis-level problems, they expose everyday bottlenecks. So companies find they're not only recovering faster during a disruption, but their day-to-day operations become cheaper and more efficient.
But the real prize, the competitive edge, has to be the resilience itself.
Yes. Enhanced resilience is the core benefit. It's about knowing you can take a punch. You can proactively identify and strengthen those weak links. It means your operations keep running while your competitors are scrambling. That builds incredible market share and customer trust.
We know the big players like DHL and FedEx are using this, but the technology itself isn't standing still, right? It's being combined with other data sources.
That integration is the next frontier, and it's happening now. The value of ABMS just explodes when you feed it better and better real-time data.
You mean like from the Internet of Things, IoT?
Exactly. IoT sensors on every container, every pallet. They're feeding live, granular data back to the simulation. The exact location, the temperature, the humidity. If a sensor shows a container has been sitting on a rail siding for 3 hours too long, the ABMS agent for that container immediately recalculates the impact on the entire global chain.
So the simulation stops being based on historical data and starts being based on what is literally happening minute by minute right now.
Precisely. And then you layer on something like blockchain.
Okay, I think of blockchain with finance and crypto. How does it apply to a supply chain?
It's not about currency here. It's about trust. It's about creating a single, unchangeable, tamper-proof record for every single item. When the system is in chaos and you're using new suppliers and weird routes, you need to have absolute certainty about who owns what and where it is.
A single source of truth that everyone can trust.
That's it. So you combine the predictive power of ABMS, the real-time accuracy of IoT, and the unbreakable trust of blockchain. And you have a supply chain that is so much more reliable and efficient than anything we've had before.
This has really painted a clear picture of the shift that's underway. We're moving away from seeing supply chains as these fragile, rigid structures
Yeah.
and seeing them as something that can be made flexible, that can be tested and hardened in a virtual world before disaster strikes.
It's a total game changer. ABMS provides quantitative answers to crisis questions. It takes the guesswork and the panic out of it and replaces it with data-driven strategy. It lets companies guarantee resilience and timely delivery, even when facing the unexpected.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to take away from this. We've established that agent-based AI simulation can model these complex, layered disasters. It can integrate real-time data from IoT and blockchain. It offers a clear, measurable competitive advantage. So here's the question. Will this technology soon stop being just a specialized tool for the biggest companies and instead become the absolute minimum, the mandatory operational baseline for anyone wanting to compete in global logistics?
In other words,
If you can't simulate a disaster, can you really afford to be in the business of moving things around the world?